My name is Adrian Kessler. I am 28 years old. When I was 19, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening and slid a stack of papers across the surface, toward me, a pen on top. My father's reading glasses beside it. My mother standing behind him with her arms crossed and a smile that looked like reassurance but was actually pressure. "We need you to sign something, sweetheart." My brother Lucas was 24. He had been talking about real estate for 2 years, flipping houses, buying small properties, renovating them, selling them for a profit. It was all he talked about at family dinners, at holidays, at every gathering where someone would listen. He had a vision. He had a plan. What he did not have was credit. Lucas had defaulted on a car loan at 21. He had 3 credit cards maxed out by 22. His credit score was somewhere in the low 500s. No bank in America would give him a mortgage, not for a house he wanted to live in, certainly not for an investment property he planned to flip. But I had perfect credit, not because I was financially sophisticated, because I was 19 and had never borrowed anything. A clean slate, untouched, no debts, no defaults, no history at all. And in the strange mathematics of lending, no history sometimes looks better than bad history. The loan was for $340,000, a mortgage on 2 properties in Trenton, New Jersey, small multifamily units that Lucas planned to renovate and sell within 18 months. My father explained it to me the way he explained everything. Calmly, patiently, with the authority of a man who expected to be believed. "It is just a formality, Adrian. The bank needs a cosigner because Lucas does not have enough credit history yet. You will never have to pay anything. Lucas will make the payments. The properties will be sold within a year and the loan will be paid off. Your name will come right off. Just a formality. You will never have to pay anything. Your name will come right off." 3 promises, 3 lies, delivered with the warmth of a father who I trusted completely. I signed. I did not read the documents. I did not ask to have them reviewed by an attorney. I did not ask what co-signing actually meant. I did not understand that by writing my name on those pages, I was taking on full legal responsibility for $340,000. I was 19. I trusted my parents, and that trust cost me 6 years of my life. Let me tell you about the family that made me believe signing was safe. Ridgewood, New Jersey. Bergen County, a prosperous suburb with colonial homes and good schools, and the kind of manicured normalcy that makes people think nothing bad could ever happen there. The Kessler family lived at 22 Hillcrest Drive, a 4-bedroom center hall colonial, with a wraparound porch and a Japanese maple in the front yard that my father planted the year I was born. My father, Robert Kessler, was a regional manager for a building supply company. He made $114,000 a year. My mother, Diane Kessler, worked part-time as a bookkeeper for a dental practice. She made $28,000. We were comfortable. Not wealthy, not struggling. The kind of family that could afford a vacation every summer and a second car in the driveway but had to think twice about private school tuition or unexpected medical bills. But the Kessler family had a hierarchy, and I learned my position in it before I could spell my own name. Lucas Robert Kessler was born on March 15, 1992, the firstborn son, the crown prince. The reason my father smiled at dinner and my mother kept a scrapbook 3 inches thick filled with every certificate, every ribbon, every school photo from kindergarten through college. I was born on November 9, 1990-6, 4 years later. The daughter, the afterthought, the one whose school photos went into a drawer instead of a frame. I do not want to paint my childhood as tragic. It was not. I was fed. I was clothed. I was housed. I attended good schools. I had birthday parties and Christmas presents, and a family that showed up to enough events that nobody outside the house would have noticed anything wrong. But inside the house, the math was different. Lucas's needs were investments, mine were expenses. Lucas's activities were opportunities. The difference was never stated explicitly. It was demonstrated daily in 1,000 small choices that accumulated over years, like sediment-forming stone. When Lucas wanted to play travel hockey, my parents paid $4,000 a year for leagues, equipment, and tournament fees without blinking. When I asked to take art classes at the community center, my mother said, "Let us see if we can fit it in the budget this quarter." They never fit it in. When Lucas graduated from high school, my parents threw a party. 50 guests, a catered barbecue in the backyard, a banner that read, "Congratulations, Lucas." When I graduated, they took me to dinner at Olive Garden. My mother said, "We are keeping it simple this time." When Lucas announced he was going to skip college and pursue real estate, my father clapped him on the back and said, "You have the Kessler entrepreneurial spirit." When I announced I had been accepted to Rutgers with a partial scholarship, my mother said, "That is nice, Adrian. Have you figured out how you are going to pay for the rest?" I figured out how to pay for the rest by working 2 jobs, waitressing on weeknights and weekends at a restaurant in Ridgewood, retail at a clothing store on Sunday mornings. I earned every dollar of my tuition gap through sweat and exhaustion and the kind of bone-deep tiredness that makes you fall asleep standing up at the bus stop. Lucas, meanwhile, was living at home rent-free, eating my mother's cooking, using my father's truck, planning his real estate empire from the comfort of his childhood bedroom, while I commuted 90 minutes each way to New Brunswick and came home smelling like restaurant grease. This was the family dynamic that produced the kitchen table moment, the evening in September 2015, when my parents slid those papers across the table and told me to sign. And I signed. Because I wanted to help, because I trusted them, because some part of me, some desperate, foolish, hopeful part, believed that if I did this for Lucas, if I supported his dream, my parents would finally look at me the way they looked at him. They did not. They never would. But I did not know that yet. The first year was fine. Lucas made the mortgage payments on time. He sent me a text every month that said payment made. All good. I checked my credit report occasionally. The loan appeared, but the payments were current. No red flags, no warnings. Then the text stopped. March 2017. I had not heard from Lucas about the loan in 2 months. I called him. "Hey, Adrian. Yeah, things are tight right now. One of the properties needed more work than I expected. I am a little behind, but I will catch up." "How behind?" "Just a month, maybe 2. Do not worry about it." I worried about it, but I did not push. Because pushing Lucas meant pushing my parents, and pushing my parents meant becoming the problem, the difficult daughter, the one who makes things complicated. So I stayed quiet. I went back to my classes and my 2 jobs and my 90-minute commute, and I did not check my credit report again for 5 months. That was the mistake that cost me everything. August 2017. I was 20 years old. I was starting my junior year at Rutgers. I needed a new apartment because my current lease was expiring and my roommate was transferring to a different school. I found a place in New Brunswick, a 1-bedroom above a bakery, $785 a month, affordable if I picked up an extra shift at the restaurant. I filled out the application. The landlord ran my credit. He called me the next day. His voice was apologetic but firm. "Miss Kessler, I am sorry, but we cannot approve your application. Your credit report shows significant delinquency on a mortgage loan. Multiple missed payments. The account is currently in default." Default. The word hit me like a physical blow. I pulled my credit report that night. I sat on my bed in my soon-to-be former apartment and stared at my laptop screen while the numbers assembled themselves into a nightmare. The $340,000 mortgage, 6 missed payments, total amount past due, $47,200. Account status, default. Referred to collections. My credit score had dropped from 742 to 489. I called Lucas. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called my father. "Dad, the loan is in default. Lucas has not made payments in 6 months. The bank is coming after me." Silence. "Dad, I will talk to him. It is probably just a mix-up. These things happen in real estate. This is not a mix-up. My credit is destroyed. I cannot rent an apartment. I cannot." "Adrian, calm down." I said I will handle it. He did not handle it. He called Lucas. Lucas told him the same story he had told me. Things are tight. The properties need more work. He is working on it. He will catch up. He did not catch up. He never caught up. Because there was nothing to catch up to. What I did not know, what I would not discover for another 4 years, was that Lucas had never renovated a single property. The 2 buildings he purchased with the loan money were in the same condition they had been in when he bought them. Unfinished, unrenovated, deteriorating. What Lucas had done with $340,000 was this. He put $160,000 into the property purchases. He put $30,000 into initial renovation costs that he abandoned after 2 months when he lost interest. And he spent the remaining $150,000 on himself, a BMW, trips to Atlantic City, Dinners at restaurants where the appetizers cost more than my hourly wage. Clothes, watches. The lifestyle of a successful real estate investor without the actual investing. And when the money ran out and the mortgage payments came due, he simply stopped paying. The bank did not care about Lucas's spending habits or his abandoned renovations or his trips to Atlantic City. The bank cared about one thing, the $340,000 loan that was now in default. And the two names on that loan, Lucas Kessler and Adrian Kessler. In September 2017, the bank's collection department sent me a letter. Certified mail, signature required. Dear Miss Kessler, this letter serves as formal notice that the mortgage loan referenced above is in default. As cosigner, you are jointly and severally liable for the full outstanding balance. Please contact our collections department within 30 days to discuss repayment options. Failure to respond may result in legal action, including wage garnishment and judgment against your personal assets. $340,000. I was 20 years old. I worked 2 part-time jobs. I had $1,100 in my checking account. I called my parents again. This time, I was not calm. They sent me a collections letter. The bank is going to garnish my wages. They are going to sue me. I need help. My father's response is something I will remember for the rest of my life. You signed the papers, Adrian. That is your responsibility now. Your brother had a bad year. These things happen in business. My responsibility, a $340,000 default that I had nothing to do with. A loan I co-signed because my parents told me it was a formality. A debt that was destroying my life because my brother spent the money on a BMW and blackjack. And my father called it my responsibility. The next 2 years were the hardest of my life. I could not rent an apartment. Every application was denied. My credit score was 489 and falling. I moved into the cheapest room I could find, a shared house in Highland Park, with 4 other people. My room was a converted closet, not a bedroom converted into something smaller. An actual closet, 8 feet by 6 feet. I fit a twin mattress and a plastic storage bin for my clothes. I could not get a car loan. My 12-year-old Honda Civic died in January 2018. The transmission gave out on Route 1 during my commute to Rutgers. I took the bus after that. 90 minutes each way became 2 hours each way. I could not get a phone on a contract. I used a prepaid phone with a pay-as-you-go plan. $25 a month for limited minutes and texts. No data. I could not get a credit card, not even a secured card with a $200 deposit. The default on my record was too severe. I graduated from Rutgers in May 2018 with a degree in business administration. Magna cum laude, a degree I had earned while working 2 jobs, commuting 4 hours a day, sleeping in a closet, and carrying $340,000 of debt that was not mine. Nobody threw me a party. Nobody hung a banner. My mother sent a text that said congratulations with a balloon emoji. Finding a job should have been the start of something better. Instead, it was another wall. Several employers ran credit checks as part of their hiring process. 2 offers were rescinded after the checks came back. One HR manager called me directly. Ms. Kessler, we are unable to proceed with your application. Your credit history raises concerns about financial responsibility that are inconsistent with the requirements of this position. Financial responsibility, a phrase that made me want to scream. I was the most financially responsible person I knew. I had never missed a payment on anything in my life. The debt on my record was not mine, but the credit report did not distinguish between my mistakes and my brother's. It just showed a number, and that number said I was a risk. I eventually found a job at a small accounting firm in New Brunswick. The owner, a man named Gerald Hoffman, did not run credit checks. He hired based on interviews and references. He offered me $38,000 a year. It was not much. It was everything. I threw myself into that job with the desperate energy of someone who had been drowning and finally found something solid to hold on to. I was the first person in the office every morning and the last to leave. I volunteered for every project. I learned every system. Gerald noticed. You work like someone who is trying to prove something, he told me after my first 6 months. I am, I said. I am trying to prove I exist. He did not ask what I meant, but he gave me a raise. $42,000, then $47,000 the following year, then $53,000. By 2021, I was his senior associate. Salary, $61,000. Meanwhile, Lucas was fine. Lucas was always fine. He had filed for personal bankruptcy in 2018, which discharged his liability for the loan. The bankruptcy stayed on his record, but it freed him from the debt. He moved back in with my parents, rent-free. Again, he started a new business, some kind of consulting venture that my father described at Thanksgiving as Lucas's next chapter. His next chapter. My pages were still stuck on the one he had burned. The bankruptcy did not free me. As cosigner, I was still liable for the full balance. The bank had no interest in Lucas anymore. He was bankrupt. I was not. I was the one with a job, a salary, and assets they could pursue. I entered a rehabilitation agreement with the bank in 2019. Structured payments, $800 a month for 30 years. The math was crushing. I would be paying for my brother's failures until I was 49 years old. But I paid, every month, on time, because that was who I was, the responsible one, the one who showed up, the one who signed. The discovery happened by accident. Or maybe it happened by fate. I am not sure there is a difference. In April 2021, I was at work, researching property records for a client's tax filing. Gerald had asked me to pull county assessor data for a commercial building in Trenton. I was on the Mercer County Clerk's website searching property records by address when something caught my eye, a familiar street name, Prospect Avenue, one of the two properties Lucas had purchased with the loan I co-signed. Out of curiosity, I typed the address into the search field. What came up stopped me cold. Property transfer record, date of transfer, March 14, 2018. Transferee, Robert D. Kessler and Diane M. Kessler. My parents. I stared at the screen. Then I searched the second property, the building on Hamilton Avenue. Property transfer record, date of transfer, March 14, 2018. Same date, same parties. Lucas R. Kessler to Robert D. Kessler and Diane M. Kessler. March 14, 2018. 1 month before Lucas filed for bankruptcy, he had transferred both properties to my parents before filing bankruptcy. Both buildings that were purchased with the $340,000 loan I co-signed. Both properties that were supposed to be sold to pay off the debt that was now mine. My brother had not lost the properties. He had not failed to renovate them. He had not walked away from a bad investment. He had given them to my parents, deliberately, strategically, 1 month before declaring bankruptcy so the properties would not be seized as assets, and my parents had taken them, knowingly, willingly, while telling me the loan was my responsibility, while watching me sleep in a closet and ride the bus and get rejected from apartments and lose job offers because of a credit score they had destroyed. They had the properties. They had always had the properties. I sat at my desk in Gerald Hoffman's office, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Something that felt like the opposite of trust. The feeling you get when you realize the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones holding the knife. I pulled more records. The properties had been assessed. The building on Prospect Avenue was now valued at $212,000. The building on Hamilton Avenue was valued at $189,000. Combined value, $401,000. My parents were sitting on $400,000 worth of real estate. Properties purchased with a loan in my name. Properties transferred to them by my brother 1 month before he declared bankruptcy to avoid his debts. And I was paying $800 a month for the next 30 years. I called Rachel Nolan, an attorney I had found through a legal aid website 2 years earlier when I was trying to understand my options as a cosigner. She had been sympathetic but realistic. As a cosigner, you are legally responsible. Unless you can prove fraud, there is not much I can do. I had not been able to prove fraud then. I could now. Rachel, I've found something. I need to see you. I drove to her office in Princeton that evening with a folder containing every property transfer record, the original loan documents, Lucas's bankruptcy filing, and the timeline I had constructed on a legal pad during my lunch break. Rachel reviewed everything in silence. 20 minutes. When she looked up, her expression had changed from sympathetic to something I had never seen from her before, predatory. Adrian, this is not just a civil matter. This is a fraudulent conveyance. Your brother transferred assets out of his name to avoid creditors before filing for bankruptcy. That is a federal crime under the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention Act. And your parents knowingly received those assets. We are not just suing them. We are referring this to the United States Trustee's Office. And when the bank finds out that the collateral they thought was lost is sitting in your parents' names, they are going to have a very interesting conversation with their own lawyers. She paused. Your parents are not just liable for the value of the properties, they are liable for the entire loan balance, plus damages, plus your legal fees, plus whatever the bankruptcy court decides to add for the fraudulent transfer. How much? Rachel did a quick calculation on her notepad. Conservatively, between the loan balance, the property values, and statutory damages, you are looking at a claim in excess of $700,000. The next 3 months were a masterclass in patience. Rachel filed the fraudulent conveyance complaint with the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of New Jersey on May 3, 2021. She simultaneously filed a civil lawsuit in Mercer County Superior Court against Robert and Diane Kessler for fraud, conspiracy, and unjust enrichment. She also notified the bank, the original lender, First Heritage Savings, the institution that had been collecting $800 a month from me for 2 years, while the collateral properties sat in my parents' names. First Heritage was not pleased. Their senior counsel called Rachel within 72 hours. A woman named Patricia Caldwell, whose voice carried the controlled fury of someone who had just discovered she had been played. Miss Nolan, are you telling me that the properties securing our loan were transferred to the borrower's parents before the bankruptcy filing? And that the cosigner has been making payments while the borrowers retain the assets through a third party? That is exactly what I am telling you. Silence. We will be joining your action. First Heritage retained its own litigation team. They filed a separate claim against my parents for fraudulent transfer of collateral. They also filed a motion to revoke Lucas's bankruptcy discharge on the grounds that he had concealed assets by transferring them before filing. My family had no idea any of this was coming. The first indication they received was a process server arriving at 22 Hillcrest Drive on May 19, 2021, a Thursday evening, dinner time. I know this because Lucas called me 20 minutes later. His voice was shaking. Adrian, what did you do? I found the property transfers, Lucas. Long silence. Those were just, Dad asked me to. It was a business decision. A business decision. You transferred $340,000 worth of real estate to Mom and Dad 1 month before declaring bankruptcy. While I was making payments on the loan. While I was sleeping in a closet because my credit was destroyed. That was not a business decision. That was fraud. You do not understand how real estate works. I understand exactly how it works. I am an accountant. I have been staring at financial records for 4 years, and I have been staring at yours for 3 months. He hung up. My mother called the next morning, early, 6:47 a.m. She never called that early. Adrian, we need to talk. As a family, we are past family talks, Mom. You are overreacting. The properties were transferred because Lucas needed to restructure. Your father was holding them temporarily. We always planned to. To what? I cut her off. To sell them and pay off the loan you told me was my responsibility? To give me back the 6 years of my life I spent rebuilding my credit? To return the $47,000 I've already paid on a loan that funded Lucas's BMW and his trips to Atlantic City? That is not fair. What is not fair is that you watched me suffer for 4 years, and you had the properties the entire time. You could have sold them. You could have paid off the loan. You could have freed me. And instead, you sat at Thanksgiving dinner and told me to be grateful that Lucas was getting a second chance. Adrienne, please. I am done pleasing Mom. I am done being the responsible one. I am done paying for Lucas's failures while you pretend everything is fine. She started crying, the performative kind, the kind designed to make me feel guilty for having feelings. It did not work. Not anymore. My parents retained an attorney, a man named Douglas Whitman from a firm in Hackensack. He filed a response to both the bankruptcy court complaint and the civil lawsuit. His defense was creative. I will give him that. He argued that the property transfers were legitimate business transactions, that Robert Kessler had provided consideration in the form of management services for the properties, that the transfers were not intended to defraud creditors but were part of an ongoing family business arrangement. Rachel demolished every argument. She subpoenaed bank records showing no payments from Robert to Lucas for any management services. She subpoenaed tax returns showing that my parents had never reported rental income from the properties. She subpoenaed the original loan documents showing that the properties were pledged as collateral and could not be transferred without the lender's consent. My parents had transferred collateral without the bank's permission. That alone was a violation of the mortgage agreement. Combined with the timing of the transfer 1 month before bankruptcy, it created what Rachel called a textbook case of fraudulent conveyance. Douglas Whitman called Rachel on June 15th. His tone had shifted from confident to careful. My clients would like to discuss a resolution. Rachel's response was 4 words. We will see them in court. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something. Have you ever trusted your family with something precious, your credit, your savings, your future, only to discover they used it for someone else? Have you ever been the one who paid while someone else spent? Tell me in the comments. Because the hardest part of financial betrayal by family is not the money, it is the realization that the people who were supposed to have your back were the ones reaching into your pocket. And if you want to see what happened in that courtroom, what the judge said when he saw the property transfer records, and the moment my father tried to explain himself and could not, hit subscribe and keep watching. Because what happened next made even their own lawyer walk away. She sat at a separate table with a paralegal and a banker's box filled with loan records. Her presence was a statement. The bank was not a spectator. The bank was a creditor that had been defrauded, and they wanted their money. Judge Tanaka was in his early 60s, thin-faced, reading glasses, the kind of judge who read every document twice and spoke only when he had something worth saying. He opened the hearing by summarizing the complaint. The United States trustee alleges that Lucas Kessler transferred 2 properties valued at approximately $400,000 to his parents Robert and Diane Kessler on March 14, 2018, approximately 1 month before filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection. The trustee further alleges that this transfer was made with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud creditors. He looked at Douglas Whitman. Mr. Whitman, does the respondent dispute the facts of the transfer? Whitman stood. Your Honor, we do not dispute that the properties were transferred. However, we contend that the transfer was a legitimate business transaction, supported by adequate consideration. Your Honor, the defense claims that Robert Kessler provided management services in exchange for the properties. We have subpoenaed bank records covering the period from 2015 through 2021. There is no record of any payment from Robert Kessler to Lucas Kessler for management services. There is no written management agreement. There are no invoices, no tax filings reflecting such an arrangement. She placed a stack of bank statements on the evidence table. Furthermore, the properties were pledged as collateral for a $340,000 mortgage held by First Heritage Savings. Under the terms of that mortgage, the borrower was prohibited from transferring the collateral without the lender's written consent. No consent was obtained. Patricia Caldwell stood. Your Honor, First Heritage confirms that no consent was given for the transfer of these properties. We were not notified. We were not consulted. We discovered the transfer only when the cosigner's attorney brought it to our attention 5 months ago. Judge Tanaka removed his glasses. He looked at Whitman. Mr. Whitman, you are asking this court to believe that your clients received $400,000 worth of real estate in exchange for management services that were never documented, never paid for, never invoiced, and never reported to the IRS. Whitman shifted. The arrangement was informal, Your Honor. Family businesses often operate on informal. Judge Tanaka's voice sharpened. Mr. Whitman, there is a difference between informal and invisible. Your client's alleged consideration for this transfer is invisible. There is no evidence it ever existed. He turned to Lucas. Mr. Kessler, you transferred 2 properties worth approximately $400,000 to your parents 1 month before filing for bankruptcy. At the same time, your sister, the cosigner on the loan that funded those properties, was making monthly payments on your behalf. Is that correct? Lucas stood. His hands were shaking. Yes, Your Honor. Were you aware that your sister's credit had been destroyed as a result of the loan default? I knew she was having some difficulties. Some difficulties. Judge Tanaka repeated the words slowly. Your sister could not rent an apartment, could not obtain credit, lost job opportunities due to a credit score that was damaged by your default. And you characterized that as some difficulties. Lucas said nothing. And during this period of some difficulties for your sister, you transferred the very assets that could have resolved the debt to your parents. For free. It was not for free. My father provided. Your father provided nothing that this court can verify. Judge Tanaka cut him off. Sit down, Mr. Kessler. Lucas sat. The judge turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Kessler, you received 2 properties from your son 1 month before he filed for bankruptcy. Your daughter, the cosigner on the loan that purchased those properties, has been making payments of $800 per month for 2 years. During this time, you have held properties worth $400,000 that could have been sold to satisfy the debt. He paused. Can either of you explain why you did not sell the properties and pay off the loan? My father stood. His voice was the same measured tone he had used at the kitchen table 6 years earlier. The voice that said, "Trust me." The voice that said, "Sign." Your Honor, we were holding the properties as a long-term investment. We planned to sell them eventually. Judge Tanaka leaned forward. Your daughter has been paying $800 a month for 2 years, $19,200 of her money, while you held $400,000 in real estate. And your plan was eventually. My father had no answer for that. He sat down. Douglas Whitman stood one more time. Your Honor, my clients acted in good faith. They believed. Mr. Whitman. Judge Tanaka's voice carried finality. I have heard enough. Judge Tanaka delivered his ruling from the bench. He did not take a recess. He did not deliberate. He had seen enough. The court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the transfer of properties located at 312 Prospect Avenue and 741 Hamilton Avenue from Lucas Kessler to Robert and Diane Kessler constituted a fraudulent conveyance under 11 U.S.C. Section 548. He continued, the transfer was made within 1 year of the bankruptcy filing. No adequate consideration was provided. The timing, the relationship between the parties, and the absence of any documented business arrangement established that the transfer was made with intent to hinder, delay, or defraud creditors. He looked directly at my parents. The court hereby orders the following. 1. Both properties are to be surrendered to the bankruptcy trustee for liquidation. 2. The proceeds of the sale shall first satisfy the outstanding mortgage balance held by First Heritage Savings. 3. Any remaining proceeds shall be applied to damages owed to the cosigner, Adrian Kessler, including all payments made to date plus statutory interest. 4. Lucas Kessler's Chapter 7 discharge is hereby revoked. He is restored as a debtor with full liability for the original loan balance. Douglas Whitman was on his feet. Your Honor, my clients wish to appeal. That is your right, Mr. Whitman, but I would advise your clients to consider their position carefully. This court does not look favorably on parties who receive fraudulently transferred assets and then seek to retain them through appellate delay. Whitman sat down. His face told me everything I needed to know. He had walked into this courtroom expecting a negotiation. He had walked into a verdict. Rachel leaned over. They will not appeal. They cannot afford the risk. She was right. 2 weeks later, Douglas Whitman filed a notice withdrawing the appeal. He also filed a motion to withdraw as counsel for Robert and Diane Kessler, citing irreconcilable differences with his clients. Their own lawyer dropped them. 24 hours after the hearing, he was gone. The properties were listed for sale by the bankruptcy trustee in October. The building on Prospect Avenue sold for $219,000. The building on Hamilton Avenue sold for $193,000. Total proceeds, $412,000. First Heritage Savings received the outstanding mortgage balance, $287,000. After credits for payments I had already made, the remaining $125,000 was held by the trustee pending resolution of my damages claim. Rachel filed a final accounting. Total payments I had made as cosigner, $19,200. Documented credit damage costs, including higher interest rates, on the 1 car loan I had eventually obtained and denied housing, estimated at $31,000. Emotional distress and consequential damages, attorney fees. The trustee approved a distribution of $89,000 to me from the remaining proceeds. The money arrived in my account on January 3, 2022. $89,000. I stared at the number on my phone screen sitting at my desk at Gerald Hoffman's accounting firm, where I still worked. Where I had been working for 4 years because one man did not run a credit check and gave me a chance. I walked into Gerald's office that afternoon. Gerald, I want to talk to you about something. He looked up from his desk, the same calm, steady presence that had anchored me through the worst years of my life. I told him everything. The co-signed loan, the default, the destroyed credit, the closet I slept in, the the bus rides, the rejected applications, the property transfers, the courtroom. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. I knew something was wrong, he finally said. The day you walked into this office for your interview, you had the look of someone carrying something heavier than a resume. He leaned back. I am glad you found your way through it, Adrian. And I am glad you were here while you did. I gave Gerald my 2 weeks' notice in March 2022. Not because I wanted to leave, because I needed to build something of my own. With the $89,000 and 4 years of accounting experience, I had everything I needed. I opened Kessler Financial Consulting in April 2022, a small practice in New Brunswick specializing in financial recovery for people who had been victims of family financial abuse, people whose parents had destroyed their credit, people whose siblings had stolen their identities, people whose spouses had hidden assets, people like me. Within a year, I had 37 clients. Within 2 years, I had hired 2 associates. Revenue in 2023 was $214,000. My family's response to the court ruling was predictable. Lucas blamed me for destroying his second chance. My mother called me ungrateful. My father said nothing. He simply stopped speaking to me entirely. But something unexpected happened 6 months after the hearing. My father's sister, my Aunt Christine, called me. She lived in Vermont. We had not spoken in years. Adrian, I heard what happened, not from your parents, from your cousin Michael who saw the court records online. She paused. I want you to know that I always knew something was wrong with how they treated you. The way they poured everything into Lucas and expected you to just survive on whatever was left over. I should have said something years ago. Why did you not? Because Robert is my brother, and I did not want to believe he was capable of what he did. She was crying now, but he was, and I am sorry I looked away. That phone call meant more to me than the $89,000. Because money can be earned back, but being seen, being believed, being told by someone in your own family that what happened to you was real and wrong, that is priceless. It has been 3 years since the court ruling. I am 28 years old. I own a financial consulting practice. I have an apartment in New Brunswick with actual rooms and actual furniture, and a credit score of 761. I rebuilt everything they destroyed, not because I am extraordinary, because I refuse to let their choices define my future. My mother called me last Thanksgiving, the first time in 2 years. Her voice was small, careful, the voice of a woman testing ice she was not sure would hold her weight. Adrian, I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but it is Thanksgiving, and I wanted you to know that I think about you. Every day. I listened. What we did was wrong. All of it. The loan, the transfers, letting you pay while we held the properties, telling you it was your responsibility. She stopped. I do not have an excuse. I only have the truth. We chose Lucas. We always chose Lucas. And you paid the price for that. Every time. It was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. I did not forgive her. Not on that call. Maybe not ever. But I did not hang up either. I listened. I let her speak. And when she was done, I said one thing. Thank you for finally telling the truth. Lucas is working at a building supply warehouse, making $16 an hour. His bankruptcy revocation means his debts are back. The original loan, the BMW he bought with the money, the credit cards, all of it restored. He will be paying for his choices for a very long time. I do not expect him to. Some men would rather lose their daughter than admit they were wrong. Robert Kessler is one of those men. But Aunt Christine visits twice a year now. She brings her famous apple pie and stories about my father as a young man, before he became the person who sat across a kitchen table from his 19-year-old daughter and lied. Gerald Hoffman sends me clients. We have coffee once a month. He never asks about my family. He just asks about my business and my life, and whether I am sleeping enough. He is more of a father to me than Robert Kessler ever was. If you are still listening, let me leave you with this. When I was 19, I signed a document because my parents told me to trust them. That trust cost me 6 years of my life, my credit, my housing, my career opportunities, and my belief that the people who raised me had my best interests at heart. But it also gave me something. It gave me clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes from being betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you. The clarity that says, I will never let anyone use me as collateral for their ambitions again. Not my parents, not my brother, not anyone. If someone in your life is asking you to sign something you do not fully understand, If they are telling you it is just a formality, if they are using words like trust me and family duty and you will never have to pay, I need you to hear me. Read every line, ask every question, and if they get angry when you ask, that tells you everything you need to know. Your signature is not a gift, it is a commitment. And the people who truly love you will never ask you to commit your future to someone else's gamble. I do not hate my parents. Hate requires energy I would rather spend building, but I do not trust them. And I have learned that trust once broken by family is the hardest thing in the world to rebuild. Maybe impossible. That is not a sad ending. It is a real one. Because real endings do not come wrapped in forgiveness and family hugs. They come wrapped in truth, in boundaries, in the quiet knowledge that you survived something that was designed to break you, and you did not break. You bent, you struggled, you cried in closets and on buses and in landlords' offices, but you did not break. You bent, you struggled, you cried in closets and on buses and in landlords' offices, but you did not break, and that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, if it reminded you that your name belongs to you and no one else, share it, like, subscribe, leave a comment telling me what you would have done. Because everyone deserves to know that their signature is sacred, and nobody, not even family, has the right to use it against you.